How to invent a religion.
I always knew you had to be willing to die to even do this job.
Can't stop what's coming.
Executive orders.
The creation and the maintenance of a secret government within our government.
Is something wrong?
With what?
With anything?
Feel like you want to rip your face off.
There's something wrong with everything.
I was so spun.
What's the most you ever lost in the coin toss?
The law of the jungle, sir.
The most you ever lost in the coin toss?
You don't know what you're talking about.
Good son.
I said, you don't know what you're talking about.
Suppression of unrest and dissent. Domestic anti-terrorism.
I don't have some way to put it. That's the way it is.
All right, Internet denizens, you know the ritual. Zoom the tomb. It's time for Blackballed with Rollie Quaid right here on revisionmedia.org. I had a live stream last night with Kenny Bartholomew over Facebook. Man, if you didn't see that already, you got to check that out. And we do have a big show for you tonight. We got a returning guest, third time on my show, James True. James, how you doing, sir?
I'm great, Rollie. It's good to be here.
Man, I'm so stoked that you're on my show tonight. And these past two shows have been really enriching, and I've learned a lot. My consciousness has risen tenfold.
Well, that's great to hear, man.
You got something exciting going on down in Mexico in 2020. Do you want to tell the audience about that real quick?
Yeah, that's right. This is the first time I get to say this via the spoken word. But I want to be on the main stage at Anarchapulco 2020. That's a weekend-long event. Actually, it's like 4 days long. It's February 14th, I believe. Of 20, I want to say it's around Valentine's Day. Website's coming up really slow right now. There it is, February 10th through the 20th. The main event's February 13th through the 16th, and I'll be doing a presentation there, probably on like how the government is mafia, and then turning that into the like a sovereignty presentation. So that's I'm guessing that's probably what I'll be talking about. But I'm really looking forward to developing that presentation for them in the coming weeks and months.
There is definitely a data mafia in the world. If you haven't heard anything about Cambridge Analytica, look into that whole scandal.
Oh, yeah.
Donald Trump doesn't even pre-write his speeches. I mean, he didn't write them before, but his beat writers are doing his speeches in real time now.
And they're writing a speech in real time? Wow.
Yeah. And there's his speeches are, and they're using sensors to detect motions from the crowds. And he puts that inside the speeches, meaning the data that's being implemented, not Donald Trump.
Right.
But we all know that Donald Trump is a weathercock. He went all around on all issues. He kind of gauged the audience and determined, the test by licking his finger and pointing up in the wind, which crowd he was talking to, his base. And if it was for example, a pro-labor crowd, that's what he would talk about.
Mm-hmm.
If it was a group that was anti-torture, he would go with anti-torture.
Right.
If he was going with a military crowd, he would talk about, I would have took their oil.
Right.
He was dealing with more paleo conservatives. Iraq was a terrible idea. So they got manipulation down to a T, and now they're implementing it in speeches. And this red flag laws after El Paso, oh my goodness. If you've ever taken antidepressant before, they're coming for your guns. That's the way they're making it out.
Yeah. And they've also been purposely prescribing those too for, decades now since Ritalin rolled onto the shores. There's been a pharmaceutical assault on any kind of behavior that was non-hive centric. That's why you have that video that's been floating around where people are like, you're assaulting me with your applause. please don't assault me with your applause. If you're going to use gendered applause, it's going to really hurt. That's the side effect of what's happening all around us. So yeah, that tuning thing with Trump really sounds just like the TV preacher that's getting cues in his ear. On aisle 3, you're going to find Ethel. She's in the 4th seat, blue dress. Yep, that's her.
Her husband has cancer.
Yep. She's got some arthritis in her hip, and it's her right hip. Yep. So you go over there and yep, yeah, you got it. Okay, coming up next. So yeah, that makes a lot of sense, especially to do it real time like that. It's getting harder and harder to be an Indian in this cowboy world. I can tell you that much.
So these holy rollers are not connected to God with the God brain, the consciousness itself. They actually have what's equivalent to a Bluetooth in their ear. And their wife is backstage, reading them the lines. And manipulation has reached its peak in human history. I mean, good God, what if the ancient Egyptians had this technology? All they could use was the golden boy and the scapegoat system. Now, yeah. It's incredible how far it's gone. And those soap operas, if you don't believe that Big Pharma is the biggest drug pusher in the world, just watch a drama, one of the soap operas. On the commercials, they sell antidepressant medicine for the soap opera you're watching.
Yep. I looking back at history, it's really interesting because if you add up how long different dynasties have lasted, it actually looks like we've gotten worse at mind control. So first of all, you're definitely right. We're so much more technical, and it's like all pervasive now. And maybe now that probably the New World Order will be another 1,000-year dynasty. But my point going back is to say that back in Egypt, you had these really long, stable dynasties that ruled versus, say, Alexander's kingdom that only lasted like 80 years. But then you compare that to like the Oracle at Delphi, and man, for 1,000 years, people were climbing into a cave, asking a gassed up virgin that's been placed on a tripod, to tell them what to do, tell them how to live their life. So when tracking mind control, it almost seems like we had a more successful system of mind control in Egypt. It wasn't just political. It wasn't just capitalism. It wasn't just war. It wasn't just violence. It was an all-encompassing form of mind control where you worshiped the Pharaoh, you feared the Pharaoh, you served the Pharaoh, you were in slavery to the Pharaoh. And that's probably why it lasted for thousands of years, is because of that mind control was just so much more pervasive in your endocrine system. And certainly you'd say that that's probably coming. But, looking back over the last 100, 200 years, it seems like that actually more like 1,000 years. It seems like we've had more trouble at that.
Yeah, definitely. Anytime that you live in an empire, you're going to be controlled in some way. They have to keep the masses in order because there's a lot more of them than there are the guards itself. And you got to keep that in mind. And also, you got to keep in mind that there's sycophants out there, and you got to have certain spies to watch the sycophants as well, and you have to be able to have people you trust. And it's really amazing, this whole concept of democracy, because the whole pretext of it is there's the masses. Mostly they're the unconscious masses. They don't know anything. They don't know any better. They're just an autopilot. They're just working. They're just trying to provide for their family. They don't really care about anything else. You can see that with the El Paso. Most people really don't care. They're just whistling Brazil.
Sure.
Whistling Dixie all day long. And going about their days. That's what they tell them at the end of the news cast. That's the takeaway. They tell you all this horrible stuff, but they say, go back to Walmart, fill up those shopping aisles, get those carts back in. We still need those 400 women, rolling in those electric wheelchairs. Mm-hmm. You can't live in fear. Can't live in fear. Don't worry about the hardship. Just, you don't worry about the stuff. Government will do that for you.
Yeah.
And it's amazing. People are trying to search for truth through the static, but the mainstream media, they messed up so much with the story about El Paso. They got the identity of the shooter wrong.
Yeah, I saw that. So much sloppiness, but I don't know. You know, there's going to be that certain percentage that gets it, and the certain percentage that doesn't. And even with mistakes that big, the percentage that doesn't get it is still not going to get it. They're still going to, insist that no, everything they're being told is legit. Everything that they're experiencing is legit, because the calories required to figure it out, to discern all that stuff, it's too much.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, and people really want to conserve their calories. They are in survival mode.
Yeah.
When the hardship comes, and, I'm not ashamed to say it. I'm a very poor person. I barely make it every week. I've actually dived into dumpsters to steal food, at Whole Foods just to make it through the day.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the way that most people live, and they're ashamed to say it in public, aren't they? Even if they have nice jobs.
Yeah, that's something we forget. That's what I mean by the calorie burner, because it's not like people don't care. It's not that people even really can't see it. It's that if you add up all the things that there are that you have to do to survive, and to have this pursuit of what we're calling comfort or happiness, you don't know how much that's changed over 100 years. You don't know how much 40% of your income feels versus 10% versus, even less. And so it really does just come down to how much energy can I expend today. The last thing you want to do is try and figure out if NASA's real, or try and determine the last false flag and see.
I can tell you that NASA's definitely not real.
Well, I'm trying to explain it more like this is your diet. This is these are the calories. You only have so many calories to spend every day, and your brain's going to burn most of those. Most of your workload is actually done by the brain. That's where most of your nutrients are going. So it's a lot of work to discern all the truth from all the lies.
We have another caller. We got Stephen D. Whitener. Stephen, you shot me a text message just a second ago. Did George W. Bush really say let's fill up the malls back again after 9/11?
Oh yeah, he came out. One of his big responses to 9/11 was to tell people to just carry on as normal. Don't let the terrorists win. Go shopping. That's what he said. Let everybody get out and go Christmas shopping. Yeah, that was. Yeah, I remember him saying.
Jon Stewart doing that too on the Daily Show when he was the man. Most people got their information from him. He had a segment saying Americans don't get discouraged by what goes on in the Middle East. We just go about our days when we have tragedy strikes in our homeland.
I know. I just spoke with John Roadworthy up in Canada, and he said that it's not even on the radar up there. These shootings aren't on the radar at all. That he hasn't heard diddly about them over the Canadian broadcasts.
Actually,
they stink too. I mean, you were talking about how they got the identity of the shooter wrong. I mean, there's just so many things that just don't add up about all this. How did this guy shoot 46 people with one 30-round magazine? If you look at the picture of him, the still shot of him walking in the Walmart, he's wearing a different pair of pants than he was when they arrested whoever they arrested. The whole thing stinks, man. It does. And I was speaking with Johnny from El Paso that we know. He said he was in the Hooters having dinner when the whole thing went down. I haven't gotten to speak with him to ask him exactly what he witnessed, but the whole thing just it stinks that it happened. And then the next day we get another one, and one of them is blamed as being an extremist on the right, and one's blamed as being an extremist on the left. It's the same thing they did to Syria, the same thing they did to Ukraine. Their American project is in play, is what it looks like to me.
So he steps in with one pair of pants, which is cargo shorts, I didn't see any high magazines tucked away in any of those pockets. So
No.
how did he spray 230 rounds? And
It's just not possible.
blood at for all those
Yeah.
victims. There would have to be guys with hazmat suits absolutely clearing out that Wailing Walmart.
Yeah.
That is designed in the shape of Solomon's Temple, by the way.
Oh, wow, okay.
And we know the pipeline between FEMA and Jane Held as well. There's a certain relationship with Walmart and FEMA.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people say that this was another capstone exercise. I do believe it. I solemnly do. And the newscasters said that the shooting happened before it even happened, too.
Yeah, I saw that.
In the papers. And
They started to say, report the story, and then the newscaster herself, she said, "Oh, that hasn't happened yet." I mean, it's right up there with saying Building 7 has fallen when it hadn't, and it was over their shoulder after 9/11. It stinks to high heaven, definitely does.
James True, did you pay attention to anything that happened in El Paso?
Well, it was actually one thing I noticed is that all these shooters happen inside of a turned district, like a dark district. Like Parkland was, Sheriff Israel and Debbie Wasserman Schultz district. The same false flag of the Zika outbreak happened there. Same thing as the Fort Lauderdale shooter. And then you've got the El Paso, which is Beto O'Rourke's hometown, which now you've got like a David Hogg older brother kind of going to Congress. And so, you're sending as many as you can that have all been personally affected by the tragedy of shooting. So, and then when you go up to Dayton, Ohio, Les Wexner, the guy that the billionaire behind Epstein, he miraculously, right when Epstein arrested, he sunk in about $1 billion into a new charity that literally said in their literature, "We don't know what we're going to do with this money." He sunk a ton of money in there with an invisible investor. And typically when you sink that much money charity locally, it's definitely going to come with some Scott Israels on the payroll. You're buying the infrastructure is what you're doing. So all three of those shootings have that same kind of taste to it, where they have the same smell. And then if you accent that with the 12 pairs of shoes that were photographed, all of those shoes were brand new. Even the sandals that they had shown, there wasn't like an imprint of your heel. There wasn't that sweaty dirt mark you see. They were all just brand new shoes. Not to mention how they even get piled up. That was a photograph run by the LA Times, I believe. It was something in LA. And it was, run across the country. It's that burning that image into your mind, that archetype. It's really, really messed up stuff.
That image that we see of the shoes, we saw that with Schindler's List too, with Steven Spielberg. When they threw the Jews in the gas chambers, the homicidal gas chambers we were taught in school existed. That there were shoe pileups, from all the dead Jews, and that was the evidence that there was in fact homicidal gas chambers. And so maybe that, like you said, that images have burned in our psychology through media and movies of shoes as well. Did you catch that at all? What's your take on that, True?
Well, someone actually posted a really smart article about that's a calling card that's been used a lot. I didn't actually have time to read that in depth, but it did remind me of the Tom Hanks thing. Tom Hanks is going around on Instagram. Dude's got a fetish for shoes, like finding children's shoes, like one or two shoes around, and he's photographing them all the time. He was in that movie One Red Shoe. It's like some kind of sick trophy is how I see it. But I'm a layman when it comes to what the symbolism of that actually means specifically.
Yep, absolutely. And the name does not occur to me now, but the founder of Nickelodeon has a foot fetish, and he could be seen with children like playing with their feet. Like for an example, what's the popular singer? Oh man, I am so out of touch when it comes to who's out from Disney. But it's he was playing with her feet, and the symbol of Nickelodeon is in fact the foot itself. And he could be seen playing with like the actresses' feet that are young and Nickelodeon. Have you seen any of those snapshots at all, James?
No, I haven't. I mean, it doesn't surprise me that that's happening, but no. Ole Damengard. Old Damengard is what Aaron Beatty turned me on to earlier, and it's a so shoe staging deception false flags are basically calling cards, and they've been used for a long time. Just like you nailed it with the Holocaust, this is a constant thing that happens. It could be a take on the Masonic shoe, that when someone's going into ritual, they're removing one of their shoes. I typically don't like to call it that, because it's really hard to nail exactly what all these things mean, especially if you're looking at like ritual stuff, because a shoe, that's going to be a pretty common theme. It could be that, it could be something else, but there's definitely a lot to it. This, shoes are easy. They're easy to take pictures of. They're easy to make it look like something that it's not. So, and I have to, to go back to these 3 shootings, it's really irresponsible for us to just assume that these are even real. I know that sounds terrible to say, but there's so many false flags. It just almost seems better for our sympathy, that we make our sympathy real, that we treat these as alleged shootings. And unless we actually know, or are in touch with someone that's there, then by all means, give it all the sympathy you can. But until then, I think it would be more constructive nationwide if we were just to naturally treat them as an alleged event. I mean, they're a rogue, if you even call them rogue. There is a mafia government that's pretending to be our government, and that no one's ever convicted them of JFK. No one's ever convicted them of 9/11. There's been no reason at all to suggest that they've just decided to not do bad things anymore. If anything, the exact opposites happen. So it would behoove us to treat them accordingly, I should say.
Yeah, absolutely. That passage of time. Most people would say, yeah, JFK was assassinated by the CIA. Duh. What else is new? Mm-hmm. No point in buying a book about that with Jesse Ventura. That's what my uncle told me. He was like, I could tell you who shot JFK. It was the CIA. What do you think it was, stupid? Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's amazing. This is like the unapproachable. Like, we're not even allowed to broach that subject. Even Hillary Clinton said during the elections in 2015, 2016 that Donald Trump has been on the Alex Jones' show, and he makes horrible conspiracies about Sandy Hook. He doesn't care about the kids. Mm-hmm. It's horrible, this mind fuckery, if you will. Just this absolutely revolting way that they're playing mental tricks on us and tugging at our heartstrings, and we're not allowed to say, hey, can you prove for a fact that this is what you say it is at face value?
Yeah, and instead of even asking them to prove it, it's probably just better just to assume it's a lie. And again, unless you've personally dealt with it, I think it's more mature to assume it's a lie. So much of our energy is used pointing out how messed up the system is, and so little of our energy is used saying, well, how could this system be better? Well, like what could we do to make it better? And if you look at what's happening around us, we've created a centralized system where the FBI can go from state to state to state and instantly gain jurisdiction. They're able to walk into a dispatch that has the exact same equipment that's running all across the country, with squawk radios, their comm systems. These all have the same protocol. They all have the same software. They all have a national network. In fact, like my local town, we were given like a cell tower for free, and I'm sorry, I can't remember the name of this. It's a kind of an emergency response frequency system, but it allows the officers to talk
to those
wind
towers, ground wave emergency network, maybe.
Yeah. Thank you. It's so I sorry, I'm butchering the name of that, but I hope you hear what I'm saying is that we're creating a system where anyone can come in with the badge and just take over. This is why at Parkland, when you're listening to the dispatch audio, you're hearing the dispatcher say, yeah, we're having radio comms are down, and then they're coming back on, and then they're going down, they're coming back on. And if you were a renegade mafia gang, 5 guys in a white pickup truck, you would have the equipment in the back of your truck that you could squawk all these channels at the same time and basically destroy the comm system. And this is a nationwide system. So we've created a nationwide vulnerability. We've created a freeway for hijacking mafia to come in and basically take over the law at any point in time. And there's nothing we can do about it unless we decentralize. And that's where we're going to have, each of our states. I would prefer even smaller than states, like a bioregion, but each of our areas would have their own sovereignty. They would own their airspace. They would own their own FBI. They would own their own FDA. All that stuff would be. They'd own their own militia. They'd own all of that. This is how we were originally started. We were supposed to start out this way. We've been hijacked by centralization. And that centralization really is what the pyramid is. It's a chain of command. You see it in the military. You see it in government. You see it in the mafia. It's always the same. In the mafia, it's called muerta. It's the I promise I won't snitch on you. In the military, it's called a classified rating. Well, you're able to hear secret documents, and you get to never tell anyone, no matter how important it is. That's your secret. These are secret societies that are operating in broad daylight right in front of us, and we're paying them to do it. We're paying for the roads for them to rush in. We're paying for the squad cars that they drive on, and we're setting up the entire court so that they can convict anyone they want to basically do whatever they want. And at no point in time have we ever been able to hold them accountable. There's not something above the FBI. And as long as we have this centralized pyramid like that, this is actually what's going to lead us to globalism. These pedophiles that we're getting ready to bust are going to be, I think what's going to happen is we're going to uncover the Clinton Foundation. It's going to turn out to be this international blackmail scheme. And because it's international, that's going to be the excuse to say we need a one world court. We need a court that's outside the jurisdiction of America because this is too big of a quote, quote, problem. We need to solve this via this one world justice. And all the pain, all the dissonance, just like there's false flags, like for 34 people killed, you have nationwide false flags. You have human trafficking, you have pedophilia, you have media takeovers. All these are leading us to the same end goal, which is more centralization and more pyramid. And it's hard to even tell people that because they just want to watch a pedophile burn. They want to burn a witch right now. When you don't have justice, you become addicted to it. And this is what we're seeing right now. It's an addiction to something we need to survive, but we have an unhealthy relationship now with justice because we never ever get it.
Well, it's fascinating to me that a couple of days before this El Paso shooting, a document that was an FBI document that named conspiracy theorists. And QAnon, it mentioned by name that it called them the greatest domestic terror threat for violence at this time. But it went on to say that the reason was because all of these conspiracies that people talk about are about to be shown to be true, that when enough people realize that all of these things that they've been hearing are the truth, that they're going to resort to violence and take things into their own hands. I mean, the FBI itself admitted that. I mean, what kind of obstruction must they be practicing to keep this out of the public eye? They know that these things are happening. They know it's true, and they're covering it up. Isn't that what they were going after Trump for? Was obstruction? They talk about the pot calling the kettle black there. I mean, the whole thing, it does seem to be coming to a head here quicker and quicker. There's a quickening as we approach 2020, I believe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's definitely speeding up. But also, I think that's part of the mind control. It's you want to reel people into this drama. The Colosseum of Rome is now the entire world. The entire world has been turned into that Colosseum, and it makes us addicted to victory instead of wisdom. That's what this addiction to justice is right now. We've been turned, and so we're only going to be satisfied with blood. But this has been the 2,000-year-long plan. This is Balfour Declaration. It's just Act 4, with the Third Temple coming up, with all these rituals happening. There are larger things happening around us. There are alchemists on the carpet. In fact, on August 11th, that'll be the 9th of Av. And 11 days prior to that, that was when the killing started. In fact, Kennedy's daughter committed, quote, quote, committed suicide. So apparently she was a sexual abuse survivor. 22 years old, goes out for a swim at dawn. Then apparently comes back and goes to bed and kills herself. But so many times these families are ritualistically sacrificed. So even that, you don't even really know what the truth is. It's just really hard to even discern the truth, which comes back to what I was saying earlier about it feels like the only thing constructive to do now is to divest our awareness, our focus into this centralized system, and to bankrupt it with attention, to literally stop feeding it our attention all the time, and find out what our land is named underneath the state of North Carolina. Find out what our real history is, and turn off this NWO through decentralization. Because as long as we keep having an authority figure that's above the authority figure that's above the authority figure, that's only going to walk us into globalism. And I don't give a crap how many times someone says, but I'm a nationalist. If you're walking us towards globalism, you're not going to be a nationalist, even if it's going to be for 4 years. I don't care what's going to happen in 4 years. I want to get us back where we're sovereign again, where we're experimenting like we used to.
The ground upon which you stand is a liberated zone. Defend it with your life.
Mm-hmm. So true. And we've lost that because we've delegated that authority to someone else. We've said, no, the EPA, they operate in a place that's not even in America. It operates in the District of Columbia. Think about it. That's not even America. We are being commanded by people that take 40% of our revenue, and they're not even in America. It is insane just how mind-controlled we are. The fact that 250 million people are going to vote red or blue and call this sanity, call this entire thing that keeps happening sanity. It's this continued illusion that government is basically good. It just happens to be broken. That literally is the giant blind spot that keeps us mesmerized in the theater. And it doesn't mean that government is bad. It means that centralized government is bad. It means that putting a straw on your back and handing the other end of that to the lips of a vampire that you will never see in your grocery store, that you will never see driving down your road, that's bad. That's a bad idea. And until we claim that sovereignty, we're responsible for what we're handing to our kids tomorrow. What we're giving to each other is bad enough. I just appeal to the kids because I'm hoping it makes enough people go, hey, wait, you're right. Screwing me is one thing, but look what I'm screwing down the line.
Well, it seems we got another caller. We got Johnny. Johnny had some footage with El Paso, and he covered it last night. Unfortunately, I was live streaming at the same time. But Johnny, can you give us some insight?
Hello, gentlemen. Well, can you hear me?
I can hear you loud and clear.
All right. Yes, sir, Rollie. Oh, man. I caught some of your show right now, your guest talking. I love that guy. I forget his name. He's great. And I guess we have as well Steven on?
Yeah, hi,
Our
Johnny.
guest
Good to
tonight
hear
is
from you.
James True. He's an author. He wrote
James True.
Blueprints for Mind Control and The Spell of the Serpents. And you can get that on Amazon too.
Yeah.
But definitely talk
you.
to James for us, Johnny.
Oh, man, it's crazy. The centralized government part is absolutely true. We see these politicians just pointing out fingers, and they're the centralized government. They're all paid off bureaucrats. Behind the scenes, they're all making deals. Some of these people are even trying to pretend that they're against of these campaigns, like Veronica Escobar. There's a guy I'm dealing with named Anthony Aguero. They're all working together behind the scenes. So this is this is why they just hate everybody that challenges the status quo. But when you talk about the shootings in El Paso in general, it's just everybody says it's a false flag. Well, we have to identify what's the difference between a false flag and people really being shot or killed. It's to carry out their agenda, as Brandon was talking about. It's to have more centralized government, to have another hierarchy of sorts, and to strengthen their structure. Not our structure as people outside on the outside, but their structure, their community. They'll pull quicker together. It's a scary thing because I'm seeing it here firsthand down here in El Paso, Texas, especially what's about to happen here in the next 48 hours. But it's amazing because everything is a false flag. Everything is supposedly Sandy Hook now.
Where were the police at, Johnny, at the Walmart in El Paso?
Okay, just for the audience on that, yes. There's always a police officer that circles within the Sam's and the Walmart. The Sam's and the Walmart are right next to each other, and then right across the street is the movie theater and the mall. So there's always cops. There's always armed guards. As a citizen down here, you cannot say there's never one. And I had people call in that night even saying, yeah, there's always a cop inside the store or outside driving around. And it took 30 minutes for the cops to respond. And then we had one of these politicians that's running for the 16th district, Anthony Aguero. He was down there in 15 minutes. So these people are well in tuned as to what's going on behind the scenes. It's very scary because then you had SWAT, FBI in the mall, and supposedly there wasn't a shooter, but they had all the cops over there all swatted up. And it's like, wow, we have the footage of people saying that there was gunshots within the mall. It's like, give me a break. So it's just to keep the masses confused and everybody to hate each other, and that's how they carry out this agenda. And as Brandon was saying, we have become addicted to not having a discipline for these people. We want to see blood on the ground and discipline of these people. And so it's turning into a chaos of sort, as he was mentioning. It's horrible. I don't know how to put it neither. It's a sad thing, really. It is to have more control, though. That's where it's going at the end of the day. And if Trump goes behind this red flag shit, excuse my language, man, I will be the first one to be the one chewing his ass.
Yeah, he already did, really. Let's think back, the California synagogue shooting was right before the Holocaust Memorial speech that he gave. And that speech, in my opinion, that speech is Trump having to come out from the closet, so to speak, and show more of his cards than he would normally have wanted to show. I think this whole time it's been and to be fair, any politician has to do this, but he's been playing as many people as he could for as long as he could. And after that Holocaust speech, I really noticed right away, this is done. Like this is where this is going, because I mean, the 28 states, it's a felony now to boycott Israel. 28, that's huge. That's more than half. And then in Florida, right after that synagogue shooting, within 2 days of that synagogue shooting, you have three bills unanimously passed that basically render the First Amendment illegal on a campus. Campus is a big deal. Every single person in the state of Florida is required to be on a campus at some point in time. You can argue, oh, well, some of them are homeschooled. I'm telling you, you're not going to be able to imagine a pie that's baking. The outer crust is going to bake first. And what is baking here is already happening. That 28 states are already crispy, and another one is fully burnt. And this stuff's not. If you look at all these shootings, these 34 dead, if that's even real, that's going to give you enough buckshot to finish this off. And it's going to be looked at as a magnanimous, peaceful decision. It's really funny because it's as above, so below. In America, they're saying, hey, we're the FBI, we'll stop planning these things. We'll stop, or we're the mafia, because some people want to call it the CIA. I don't care what you call it. The government, they're telling you that they will stop weaponizing and targeting individuals to do these if we just give up. And that's what's happening in the Middle East. It's going to be a promise of, hey, we're going to deliver you peace, but you're going to have to give up. It's going to cost you a world court. Just like here, we'll stop the shooting, but it's going to cost you your guns. It's going to cost you that Second Amendment. Every day we get closer to it. And if you're only living for 80 years tops, it's not enough time to understand we're losing this battle every day. This is not something where it's like, oh, I hope we'll win. Oh, I hope we'll change the course of this. That's a very naive way of looking at it. Countries aren't what we think they are. It'd be so great if we would stop seeing them as what we think they are versus what they really are.
Yeah, I actually dabbled with that with the border wall a little bit last time than you were on. And one thing about the border wall, I always wondered, is it really to keep them out or to keep our asses in? And that's what they think with fences as well in certain neighborhoods. It's the idea of keeping these people out or really just keeping them in, keeping them corralled. But James, I don't know if you've seen some of the headlines, and last year Trump is on a memorabilia coin with King Cyrus.
Yeah.
But just now, the synagogue that his daughter goes to, Ivanka, recognizes her as Esra from the Bible, and they call her that. And if we remember, Esra was supposedly saved the Jews from certain annihilation.
Yeah.
And this is the same time where she's pressing for gun reform law. And the red flag, I don't really think these directives are coming necessarily from her. You got to take into account the think tanks, the neocons, and the NGOs. But you got Shale Alderson, who funded and bankrolled Trump's campaign, says that he wants a biblical book of Trump. And Pompeo, who used to be the head of the CIA, now Secretary of State, says that it is possible that Trump was sent by God to save the Jewish people. My goodness, these are religious fanatics.
Well, it's the worst of Kabbalistic magic unwinding on the world stage. Benjamin Netanyahu's really close friend was Jared Kushner's father, Charles Kushner. That guy spent 2 years in prison, 14 felony counts of blackmail.
This was sexual blackmail too, right?
He hired 2 prostitutes to try and frame someone to protect himself legally from something else, just to give you the short story of it. This guy's a professional blackmailer. And his son, even though he's convicted, his son's like, yeah, I'm gonna marry Ivanka Trump. And not only that, then you have the most prestigious property in Manhattan. Probably, yeah, I would say so. Rockefeller Center. This Tishman Spear Company. Tishman was the general manager, construction manager for the World Trade Center when it was first built. Okay, so you've got David Rockefeller, the master magician, massive satanic rituals happening with 9/11, of course. But during all this, he's got this Tishman guy, and he's like, yeah, let's do something else. And so the Vanderbilts owned this property, the 660 originally, Fifth Avenue, which is 666 Fifth Avenue. This building went back in the Vanderbilt time for a long, long time. Tishman built something on it, and then they sell it to a Japanese company. It stays sold for a while until 2000, right when 9/11 happened. Tishman comes in and buys that building back.
And that building had red letters 666 plastered on it, didn't it, James?
Yeah, it did. And it was grandfathered in as the only street, check this out, the only building around that area that was allowed to have 666 that big. They pretended it was some kind of ancient sign ordinance that allowed that to happen. So it wasn't even just a coincidence, It wasn't like, oh, well, back then everyone was designing with big letters. No, this is the only building that has that. The only time the 666 went down is when Citigroup was in there. But again, that was when it was under this Japanese ownership. So it turned back into a satanic property or a magical property or an alchemical property, whatever you want to call it. It turned back into a Kabbalistic property in 2000. And these are the same people that own Rockefeller Center. This is the Rockefeller money that it has this Vanderbilt property. So you can see right there, these are two really charged pieces of land, and it's on 666 Fifth Avenue. So that's already pretty much, picture this, the most valuable purchase ever in Manhattan at that time. Because for $1.8 billion, Kushner was able to buy that building for $50 million down. Like, that's all he had. And his dad was just out of prison for a year for blackmail, for sexual blackmail. And not one person in the upper echelon of New York real estate decided to say, oh, I'm not going to do business with that guy. He might blackmail me with a video camera. I mean, the guy was even doing it with a video camera. And still everyone said, no, let's do it. Let's do this deal. So you have this anointment. It's really important. You have this anointment from bloodline families, from a Vanderbilt and from a Rockefeller. And it's not just a regular anointment, like, I'm going to give you this land. They sold him that for $1.8 billion to make it the most expensive property that had ever been bought. And of course, 1.8 is also 3 sixes. So you're looking at a Kabbalistic alignment, which is also another form of anointment, if you think about it. So all the rich people have anointed him. Donald Trump's anointed him by giving him the loins of his daughter. And then you have all these Kabbalistic financial people that are anointing him too, by allowing him to buy this building with $50 million down. Now, Kushner lost $800 million on that building. Now, when I say 800 million roughly, because it's hard to even track, but he lost a lot of money on that building. But the entire time, even CNN never went after him for that. They never said, oh, this guy's a failure. This guy's a blackmailer. What the hell's wrong with this guy? Why are all these people doing this? It was just always, what a genius Kushner is. He was such a genius. He got Donald Trump elected, is what they were saying, even though Steve Bannon did that. He was such a genius. He sold MAGA hats because he had a friend that worked at Facebook, and he called his friend, and his friend said, yeah, you should sign up for ads on Facebook. And that decision made him the brilliant savior of the campaign. The guy lost $800 million in a real estate deal in 5 years. No one says a word. He makes $90,000 selling red MAGA hats made in China, and he's called the most brilliant mastermind of a campaign ever. So add that to all the other anointments, and you've got, from both sides of the aisle of media, you've got them anointing him. And then you've got the billionaires. You've got Peter Thiel, 4.3 billion, I think. You've got him, which he was already a Republican, so I'll give you that. But you've got him on one side. But then you've got these other two really big billionaires on the left, major Clinton supporters, that they're turning around too. And they're saying, no, this is our guy. This guy's a genius. We're talking Eric Schmidt, $7.8 billion from Google, who's now works at the Pentagon. Eric Schmidt loved Hillary Clinton. And he comes out and says, Jared Kushner is the biggest surprise of the 2016 election. When Nikki Haley was on her resignation, she calls him a hidden genius. No one understands. So all around him, all these billionaires aligned. They're like pointing at him like a compass. And they're like, we choose you, Jared Kushner. You are the chosen one. And what's interesting about that is, if you consider how the Jews feel like they're the chosen people. This is literally the chosen of the chosen. This is like nuclear narcissism that's been tinctured down into a religion and it's been broadcast into every single person that's ever been in a dentist office when they're 7 years old and they're waiting to go in and they're looking at a highlights magazine that's telling them, yeah, the Jews are the chosen people. This is like some of the thickest mind control that you could possibly imagine, because to doubt these guys is to doubt the Holocaust. It's to burn in hell for not following God's word. And that's really is the power behind this NWO. This New World Order is going to be something that we beg for. When I say we, I'm talking about the majority of people are going to beg for it. And it's already happening. It's already being set up. That's why Kushner's going to come in and save the Middle East. He's going to be this renegade savior that did something no one else could do. That's why Trump's already setting him up as, if Kushner can't do it, no one can. That's why these groups like Blackstone Group, who purchased another building later for $1.8 billion. That's why BlackRock Incorporated, the world's largest shadow bank, all these companies are behind this one guy, and media is not complaining about it. Billionaires like Haim Saban, this international dude, same kind of dude, has him on stage and just tells everyone all around, this guy, this is the guy. This is the future. This is how this is going to go down. All these billionaires are going to turn in one direction. And the moment they do, including George Soros, the moment all these billionaires turn into one direction and point at one person, you're looking at a literal pyramid. And now you've got the capstone. You've got someone on top. And just the pranic energy of all of our people that aren't sovereign, that have given up their sovereignty, is just going to go right into that. It's going to go right into that machine. And it's going to make it a lot worse. I wish I could say better things right now, but that's really is what's happening around us as we're talking right now.
They actually call these mass shootings. Hey, Johnny, hold on 1 second. Let me ask True a question. They actually call these exercises capstone exercises. And if anybody's familiar with that, the capstone is something that the builder wanted to complete his structure, and it was ultimately rejected. And we see the same symbolism as you described. You know, can you get into a little bit about the capstone and how it relates to control and the greater good? The Masons believe in morality as it's innocuous. There's the serf, lower level morality. Then there's the controller morality, which is much different. You know, blackmailing everybody in a tight network is good for the controllers, because not only are they religiously connected as one hive mind, but they cannot act out on each other through sexual blackmail.
Mm-hmm. Well, psychopathy, the only way you're going to be able to trust another psychopath is through blackmail. If you don't, because you're dealing with a psychopath, your trust receptors have been burned out a long time ago. So it becomes a glue. It's a really important glue. That's why when you see blackmail, guys, it's not normal. If you see someone that's into blackmail, and he paid $25,000 to these hookers, this wasn't like him going, "Hey, I'll give you $10 if you take a picture of someone." No, it's $25,000. He wanted to catch someone having sex on camera. This is someone who understands this is how it works. So when you see blackmail, it's really important that you understand there has to be a psychopath attached to that. There's no other reason why blackmail would even be appealing to anybody. No one would want to trust you on the outside if you do that, unless you're already a psychopath, unless you're already surrounded by that. Now, back to the thing about the Mason stuff. I don't want to say that it isn't this, because I don't know, but just my gut tells me this is more like chaos magic. It's not necessarily like Masonic magic. I just say that because sometimes I've noticed that I've gotten myself into trouble because I've looked at it as like a Masonic ceremony, but actually it has elements of it that don't really fit that same theme all the time. And it seems like most of the alchemists that are out there right now, like Elon Musk is an example of that. Here's someone that you just saw was initiated into the upper echelon of alchemy. That cost him a lot of money, and he had to put out a giant lie to get there. He had to engage in the blackmail with everyone else. And that's when he's, orbiting his car. He's supposedly orbiting a Tesla around the Earth right now with a live streaming camera of it. That's how you blackmail yourself within the agency. You're not really allowed to call NASA bullshit or the Virgin Galactic bullshit. You can't do that because you are right there with them. So these are like tiers of blackmail. And that's why I describe it more like chaos magic, because you're really looking at more, how do you control other people? How do you manipulate their prana, their belief? So much of what we're seeing all the time with these narratives is belief manipulation. It's just people like Al Gore is a perfect example. Here's a guy that came up with a new spell. I can make people feel like shit by telling them that oil comes from dead dinosaurs. And I can convince them that they are killing the earth every time they breathe. That's a really powerful spell. And it worked. He got major props for that. He raised up through the ranks, became a massive politician. And that's what makes him a powerful magi. But that's very much a chaos magic kind of thing. It's gonna change depending on the magician and what they can pull off. Johnny, I know you had something to say, so I don't want to make you wait too long.
No. You're getting into some crazy stuff. It kind of correlates to all that. So you're saying that these politicians and or these Jewish people, Jared Kushner, they're practicing black magic?
I think they're practicing Kabbalah. And so, to really be fair, they could. I'm sorry, it's not going to happen. It's not. They believe in a two-headed union. They believe in polygamy. They believe in international polygamy. They believe that the success of America is absolutely relied upon the marriage of America and Israel. So everyone in that organization believes that. So they're probably most magicians think they're like good people. They're like, oh, everyone wants to sleep at night. And if you have a conscience that's free of guilt and of shame, unless you're a psychopath that really knows how to carve that stuff out, then you're doing it for a different standpoint. But then like you're having like flies land on your face, like when you're talking on camera, you really have become a different person there. So most of the people that are like these chaos magicians, they think they're good people. Trump thinks he's a good person by aligning with Israel. He's had people from the oldest temples in the world, from the oldest families in the world, lay their hands on him and told him, you are the archetype of gold. We want you to wear orange makeup on your face because you're going to accent the archetype of Jupiter. It's going to allow you to walk into the streets of Rome where no one else could and sacrifice your prisoner. This is the chaos magic where, it's not really Masonic. You're going back into ancient Rome and you're invoking a hero that's archetype as a planet. And so you're pulling all that prana out and you're able to jack it into Trump. That's why all the media was calling him orange. It looked like they were making fun of him. But no, if you can give a belief, if you can give prana to a color, if you can make people think of someone when they see a color, man, you are seriously sucking some major life force from them. Think about the people that hate Trump. They started off hating him way, way, way back in Love Trump's Hate, right? Like that was a long time ago, Love Trump's Hate. This whole time, they've been carrying this weight, and it's gotten heavier every freaking day. And when they get up now, they can't, there's nothing they can do where they're not going to see Trump. And whether you hate Trump or whether you love Trump, you're giving him the exact same life force, the exact same belief. And that's why he's such a massive alchemist. He literally has turned himself into the archetype of the lion. And when he tweets, when he does what he does, he is on the master's carpet. He's manipulating a spell. This is the very same kind of spell that you would see in a wrestling match. When you go to a wrestling ring, you don't want to watch the plumber fight the electrician. You want to watch Captain America fight the desert dark dog. You want something that has some polarity to it. And that's what you're seeing from Trump right now. And that polarity is part of this anointment, this New World Order anointment to not him necessarily, because he's the Cyrus, but to this second coming, to this next vessel. That's why they can still be hard on Trump, because he's, in a way, he's sort of like a disposable tool. This is why you have massive love for Obama, and then you have another chaos magician come in and destroy that other archetype as a way of harvesting power from it, and then he builds up too. But Trump is polarized on purpose. He's not able to be this vessel for quote peace. Peace really is technically animated apathy, if you think about it. That's really what Kushner is going to bring to us. And he's going to do that through this vessel of Ivanka Trump, through this vessel of Trump and the anointment. And more importantly, when these billionaires kick in, because I think that's what Epstein's a fake billionaire. He'll be the witch, if not Hillary Clinton, but probably just Epstein. After that witch burning, that's when the sacrifice will have to be paid. And that payment is going to be more of our consent, more of our belief systems going into this next level thing. We think the NWO is outside of America, like it's like hanging out in Astana somewhere, or it's in some secret Jewish temple, or it's underneath the Vatican. America is the New World Order. You just have to look on the back of your dollar bill. We are the spider that's weaving this web. We are doing it right now.
Absolutely fascinating. Johnny, let me take this.
Oh, sorry.
So, James, I wrote an article called Our Golden Ratio Toad God. And that was a nod to Donald Trump himself. And it's amazing. His hair is a perfect ratio. And it looks like a pharaoh headdress itself.
Mm-hmm.
And we know about gold. It has a certain psychological hold on our psyche.
Of course, yeah.
Not to be redundant, using psych twice, but it really is in our Judophile culture. Whoever displays gold is displaying power, and the collective, they view whoever's the golden child in a certain light from the commoners, and we know that they actually used gold light when Hillary Clinton was talking and made her look like an aura of gold back when she was talking. And she does have that blonde hair as well. What is going on in Donald Trump's head? We're going to be talking about his skull, like what's going on between that little sponge, because the title of the show is Donald Trump, Pentium processor, and you described him as having certain attributes that are high speed, almost like machine-like last time that we talked. Should we go ahead and dive into that, take that swan dive into that issue, and then we're going to get Stephen back on?
Sure. I don't remember how we turned him into a processor as much as just how our experience ends up resolving who we give our belief to. Trump sleeps well at night. He thinks that he's a savior. In fact, he's chemically mind controlled, because the moment you bestow Perseus with golden shoes and a golden helmet and a golden shield, the moment you do that, he's now obligated to kill Medusa. He's not just obligated, he's he's chemically punished for not doing it. To bestow that much light and love onto someone and then to take it away is a really powerful form of slavery. This is why you have terms like love bombing, where you might have met a psychopath in your life and they just told you were just the most amazing person they've ever met. And then one day they discard, they take that away. That's a very powerful magic when one person does it to another. But imagine 24 Kabbalists, world leaders, doing that to you. Imagine the world's richest families doing that to you. And then imagine understanding that the penalties for not being the golden child, for not being King Cyrus, are going to be obliteration through bad press, through maybe blackmail. I say maybe just because I just don't know. We just don't know what they have on Trump, if anything. You could control someone just by this, just by what I was talking about if you build someone up like that, they're going to want to stay in that position. They're going to want to stay. Their posture is going to always reach higher for that biscuit if you raise it up higher. This is just chemically how it works. This is why I call these elite families we see, they're more like thoroughbred horses. They've been trained from a very young age to want a certain chemical, and that chemical is restricted so that you can control them for the rest of their life. That's why that's why thoroughbreds don't really have free will. Your prized possession, Black Beauty, that won the Kentucky Derby doesn't just get to, I'm going to drink a milkshake today and just go fart in the field. It doesn't work that way. They're a $4.5 million horse. That's not going to happen. They're going to get an enema. They're going to get their balls shaved. They're going to have car wax put on their hoofs. That's the life for them. And if they've been brought up that way the whole time, the idea of freedom is going to feel repulsive to them. It's going to feel like a rejection. It's going to feel like a horrible thing. So these are very easy pieces to move around the board. They have predictable movements, and the people that are outside the board, the people with no birth certificates, they're able to instigate these situations and feel damn sure that this bishop's going to only move diagonally, and this rook is only going to move horizontally and vertically. It becomes very easy to predict that and to see the game 20, 30 moves ahead before any of us can even fathom what's happening.
So The Art of the Deal was a book written by Donald Trump in 1987, but it was co-written by Tony Schwartz, and he goes on CNN quite often talking about the mental state of Donald Trump, saying along the lines he doesn't have the temperament to have the nuclear football. He could press the button at any time and the whole world will blow up. But he's not a registered psychologist. And then I have to mention that every time he comes on to CNN. Oh, by the way, how's that degree going? He's a middle-aged man, almost elderly. So he's never going to be a psychologist, but they like to play these little shell games that they like to play to pretend like the experts something. They shouldn't be able to be allowed to talk to large groups of people, much less lead the whole nation's consciousness and tell us what to think, because that's exactly what they do in the mainstream media. They tell us what to think, usually by suggestive thinking, and nobody's the wiser.
Well, they've set up the savior paradigm a long time ago, and once you have that savior paradigm set, then you really have an audience that's easy to lead. This is akin to putting a bit in a horse's mouth and blinders. Once that bit's in your mouth and the blinders are on, you're kind of freaking out. You can only see a small amount, and you're going to feel better if someone's guiding you. That's going to be your new life now. You're going to adjust to that. You're going to want that. I think it was on page 188 of that same book where Donald Trump mentions his Kabbalist by name. And it's important that people realize that Trump's been brought up from a very young age, studying the Kabbalah, studying the power of belief, the power of numbers. The reason why numbers are powerful is very similar to how you might find a coincidence or a four-leaf clover in the yard. Let's say that you were to chemically prove that four-leaf clovers mean nothing. It doesn't matter, because if you find that four-leaf clover right before you're going into a job interview, technically that's a fetish. You're turning it into a fetish. This is the good definition of the word fetish. It's simply a charm. But that charm is imbued now with magical power. You feel like, oh, I've found something at just the right time. It's a magical item that's going to make me do well. If you walk into the job interview with that four-leaf clover, you are going to do better than if you didn't find that. It's just how it happens. We don't understand how this works scientifically in our world because science is really a seance. It's more of a trance that we're entering into. Imagine if I was to tell you that, hey, half of all magical spells are proven wrong in 20 years. You might start to go, well, I don't know if I believe in magic if that's the case. Or if I was to say 2/3 of all spells cannot be repeated by another magician in a lab, in an independent lab, you would say, oh, well, I don't know if I believe in magic as much. But those two facts I just gave you are actually true about medicine. It's 2/3 of our lab results cannot be repeated by an independent science right now. In 20 years, everything that's half of everything that's been put down as saying true is proven wrong. These are statistical averages that are true. But we still have this same trance about science. We still have this same false belief that it's flawless, that it's perfect. Meanwhile, you walk into the interview with that four-leaf clover and you frickin' nail it. And you are the king daddy that day, and you get the job, or you get the girl, or you get the raise, or you get the promotion, whatever it is. The belief. It's the belief that you jacked into. And that belief is what keeps us inside this pyramid, is this harnessing, this trapping of belief. I've been writing a lot about the Bible lately because I think the Bible is the main spell for this shorting of our power. And I'm not trying to diss the Bible. I'm just trying to say that if you look at what the Old Testament is and the New Testament, this ties back into Masonic stuff and chaos magic. You've got two pillars. You've got the Old Testament and the New Testament. And one of those testaments is mercy, and the other of that testament is strictness. I'm sorry, can't think of the word right now. But these are the Joaquin and Boaz. These are the two towers. One tower is a swift hit, like the first tower, like the North Tower of 9/11. There was no warning. The second tower was a mercy hit. You had a warning, something that was going to happen. You knew that something about to happen was bad. You had time for people to get out. When you set these two tones inside of a spell, you create two different rhythms that create a dissonance. That dissonance creates a hypnotic state that puts you in a trauma programming trance. That's why the Old Testament is brutal. It's about revenge. It's about kill your son and, do this and I'm going to punish you and how dare you, blah, blah, blah. And then the New Testament's like, oh, it's okay. It's okay. It's this trauma program that you might get from two parents, where one parent's treating you like a golden child, the other's treating you like a scapegoat. This is how you shake open. This is how you shuck. It's how you shuck a clam. If you open that clam enough, you can pull its pearl out. And once that pearl's out, you can convince it, oh, this pearl's a problem. It's dirty sand. Now you can possess it. Now the machine can enter that clam. It can cause that clam to open with its own vibration because it understands it's hollow and it can resonate something inside of it. These same spells are happening on a global scale too. It's the exact same spell, Rollie, because there's capitalism and there's communism. Those are the two towers. One's pretending to be mercy, one's pretending to be severe. Or a better way to look at it is one's the golden child, one's the scapegoat. Then you have Republican and Democrat, and those roles change from each traverse. It's always about two towers. It's always about two choices. And you know that you're in a trance when 250 million voters choose red or blue every 4 years, no matter how shitty it gets. That shows you that the mind control's working. And as long as they keep these two towers up, what is World War I but a tower? What is World War II but the second tower? This is how a Kabbalist creates magic, is through resonance. They want the octave of what they're playing to reverberate up and down the scale without having to hit each note. That's why if you're playing the guitar and you've tuned it just right, if you pluck the 12th fret without actually pushing it down on the fret, you get 3 octaves higher. It's the natural resonance that's going to occur from that. That resonance really is the key to magic. That's the key to chaos magic. It's the key to Masonic magic. It's the key to John Dee, Enochian magic. It's all about resonance. That's why magic is so powerful. And that's why I'm so scared about the First Amendment, because your vocal cords are two towers, man. They are literally two towers. And when King James, before he wrote the King James Bible, his first book was called Demonology. It was a manual for how to torture witches. And in that manual, he specified, here's what I don't want you to ever do anymore. And he said, you cannot have, I'm going to actually read you the passage because I was just writing about this and I've got it up. It's a real quick sentence. He told you, I want you to, here's how he described it. I mean, by such kinds of charms as commonly daft wives use, for healing of forspoken goods, or for fixing things that have been bewitched, or doing of such like innumerable things by words, without applying anything to meat or the part offended as mediciners do. So before King James wrote the Bible, he came out and he said, anyone who feels power and magic from their voice is a witch. He was condemning the two towers inside your throat. And then what did he do? He turned around and produced a book that had two towers in it, the Old Testament and the New Testament. And it's almost like when you open this book, because of all the shame, because of all the danger that's in there, it's almost like in Ghostbusters where you open that ghost trap and all this plasmic energy gets sucked into it. It's almost like all of our beliefs, all of our inspiration, all of the power of the four-leaf clover gets sucked into this book. And then we get it back, but at a massive tax. It comes back to us only if we get on our knees and tell the world, tell the Holy Spirit, which is technically a demon. When I say demon, guys, I'm talking about the old definition of demon, which literally just meant divine inspiration. It was like a psychic program running. But in the Bible, there's one demon. It's the Holy Spirit. And he gives you back your energy. But it's only after you've told him just how fucked up you are, just how broken you are. It's only after you admit that you were born into sin and that you own a blood oath to someone that was sacrificed before you even got here. It creates this motor of guilt. And I believe that motor of guilt is actually what's causing us to not look around and go, I want to be sovereign. I don't want an FBI to be in charge. I want to be able to control my government with my own consent. And until we can break this spell, we're going to be stuck in this same trance where shit just gets worse because we keep being pulled by two towers into the center. It doesn't matter if you're swaying to the left or the right. These are the fence posts that happens in mind control. Sorry, the long one there. All right, Rollie must
Absolutely
be.
amazing.
Oh, there you are. Good.
Yeah, absolutely amazing, James. It's hard for me to process that much information. Absolutely blowing my mind. You know, with mind control, and you mentioned this a little bit earlier, you were talking about in order to like ride a horse, you first need to break it. So humiliation is a big part of the ritual itself. And when humiliation comes to mind, I think of Brett Kavanaugh, who went through a whole Masonic ritual of humiliation before he could get sworn on to the Supreme Court. But you could also argue that Donald Trump is going through an humiliation ritual. Would you say that's pretty accurate?
Well, maybe. I say maybe because there's really two ways to turn a slave. There's the humiliation would be how you would train a scapegoat. But see, you can torture someone by putting them in a pit, and you can torture someone by putting them on a pedestal. Both ways are what I was telling you about. Both ways are discards. Both ways are abandonment. It's just abandoned in different ways. Like, you know, if you were the golden child and you always grew up and you had tons of money and you were super rich and everything was always handled for you, if you were to really be out on your own at 18, like really on your own, really on your own, something was to happen and you just no longer have access to that, you would be completely destroyed. You would show just how weak and terrible you are. You'd probably be a psychopath or some sort of sociopath, I should say, because you're going to be in a world where people aren't treating you like they used to treat you anymore. So it's still abuse, but it's not humiliation. It's actually the cessation of praise that is just as deadly as the invoking of humiliation. In fact, you maybe would argue, that the golden child is worse because no one is ever going to say, oh, I feel super sorry for that massive rich kid that now has to fend for himself. It takes a very special kind of empathy to look into that. And that's why the Vanderbilts are controlled that way. I think that's why, I mean, look at Anderson Cooper, man. That's such a freaking creepy dude. But not only that, he's a multimillionaire, and he's still choosing to lie on camera. Like
Did you know that Anderson Cooper's actually a Vanderbilt? He changed his name.
Yeah, exactly. I'm sorry. I just assumed everyone knew that. Yeah, he's a Vanderbilt family, multi-millionaire, but one of the most powerful families in the world. And this guy is pretending to be drowning inside of a gully that they've dug out. So it looks like he's deep underwater so they can film a segment because it's raining. He's willing to humiliate himself now, probably because he was tortured in that golden child kind of way. And then the cessation started. That's why he has such a fetish for Honey Boo Boo. That's why he has these fetishes for being a controlled rooster in a way. There's a lot in that famous headboard in that picture of them, of their family, where there's a decapitated angel, which is Carter Vanderbilt, and then the rooster receiving it. So Carter Vanderbilt, this is the guy that jumped off the balcony. His mom read him a story out of the New Yorker, and he jumped off a balcony. And that energy, that pranic energy, was transmuted into Anderson Cooper. And he became the satanic rooster. He gets up at 4:30 in the morning. He crows the lies for the mainstream media. To him, that is the perfect role. He's a slave, but he's still out in the open. He's still the golden child. This is as close as he can get to being back on that pedestal, because he's been told his whole life, you're a Vanderbilt, you're this, you're that, and then they pulled it away. Boom, instant slave.
His whole idea of getting away from his family ties was not use his last name. He never suggested, give up his wealth, that nepotism that got him into power. And that's definitely what gets you on CNN. It's nepotism. It's
Mm-hmm.
knowing the right people and not challenging the narrative. I mean, look at Wolf Blitzer.
Yeah.
Always softball questions for the right people.
Mm-hmm.
And then he tried to kneecap Bernie Sanders, which I do not support, and Tulsi Gabbard. Hard questions for them. But the ones that are going to get elected, the more establishment people, he just fondles over them and just asks them cotton candy questions.
Well, that entire set is a ritual circle. The moment you enter that set, you are inside a spell. You have props, just like a magical. Again, this is more chaos magic. You have props. Everyone looks cleaner than you would ever see another human. People wear makeup. There's music. There's cunning lights. There's dramatic music feed-ins. There's cutting-edge stories. Even though people are standing right next to each other on the street, they're broadcasting as if they're really far away. The entire thing is a spell. The newscast is a pellet that encourages you to want more pellets. That everything's a series. Everything's serial. That's what Gore Vidal meant when he said the United States of amnesia. The fact that everything's reported in a serial fashion still allows you to forget. All you need to remember is at the very last minute they said, "Oh, tomorrow we're going to tell you how not to die when the sun shines." That's all they need. They don't need you to remember everything they said. They only need you to remember those last few minutes. And that's the same hook. It's a recycled hook in the fish's mouth. When you start to understand what prana is, what your life force is, where your belief is going, you can track these things. You may be walking down the road and all of a sudden you feel really embarrassed because of something you said, or maybe something was construed wrong. When that happens, that feeling of embarrassment, that's actually like a leak. You're leaking life force when that happens. In fact, if it's something you did that really bothers you, you'll completely drain your system right there. These leaks, if we didn't have so many leaks of our prana, we wouldn't be walking around like we're almost out of gas. We wouldn't be walking around like our tank is just barely dry and we're in a hurry. I'm so nervous I'm not going to make it over this hill to get to the gas station. I've got to find a way. I've got to find a way to get there. That's how you program the entire nation. That's actually why they have taxes. Although sure, they definitely benefit from the resources that we make for them. It's really more about belief. It's really more about prana. If they can keep this prana pouring out of us all the time, we're going to be really docile. We're going to be really malleable. This is why we attack the ego. This is why we're always walking around telling people, check your ego, man, or you sure are full of yourself, or things like, how arrogant of you to think you could change the system. All of these are people trying to poke each other's ego out to drain it. And that's because we've set up an inverted society where the media treats the stars like golden childs, right? They're the ones that are on the screen. They get big gold trophies. They have billions of dollars. They're allowed to travel and bitch at us for getting on an airplane. And then you have everyone else who's the scapegoat. The scapegoats are the white supremacists. They're the ones that can't be trusted with guns. They're the ones that don't know how to vote right. They're the ones that are inherently racist, even though somehow they evolved from monkey, but only the bigot monkeys evolved. Media is constantly treating us like a scapegoat, because if they didn't, the mind control wouldn't work. And we only feel like a scapegoat. Here's what's really important. We only feel like a scapegoat if we have a golden child to compare ourselves to. That's why they have to flaunt the golden childs in front of us. All these ceremonies for awards, these are programming rituals. They actually don't really care that much about the awards, but they need to watch. They need you to be in your couch looking at them receiving awards made out of gold. They need that prana to stay that way. Just like I was telling you about Two Towers, golden child and scapegoat. Hollywood is one of those towers. It's the tower in your psyche, and the news is the other tower. They're both controlled by the same chaos magicians. One is putting a dissonance of fantasy, of luxury, and the other's putting the fantasy of, you dirty, stinking bastard, how dare you breathe right now? It's only through that the magic works, because none of us know where to go. None of us know what's right anymore. And those of us that stand up and say, this isn't right, it becomes very easy to feed off of that ego. The ego that it took for me to rise up and say, this isn't right, becomes a salt lick in a field where anyone can come and tear me down. And when they tear me down, they eviscerate that, and they're able to eat my prana. This is what a victimization hierarchy is, where the person who can prove themselves the most victimized in the room ends up being the one on top of the pile. And it's purely because they survived the piranhas the longest, because they have the least amount of prana to them. Therefore, they are considered the most valuable in the room because they're the least vulnerable. It's so fucked up. It's turning us all into psychopaths if you think about it. That's what calling someone racist is. That's blackmail if you think about it. You're exposing someone's secret, which everyone knows has, by calling them, well, you're racist or you're sexist or you're xenophobic. They're turning us into psychopaths and controlling us through blackmail. They just need us to get to be more psychopathic first. And boy, they're doing a great job. It's, if they just keep pushing, we'll get there eventually. We're getting there every day.
Your upcoming book, and I saw that you tweet out, it might be called Piranha Economy. Are you going to still be using that title?
I think so. It's the technology of belief is probably like the subtitle, and it's basically outlining how the engine of belief works, how this fuel of belief works, and I trace it all the way back to Rome, to Egypt, to Greece. I take it into politics. I take it into the Sabbatean Judaism movement. I analyze the Bible. I expand on what we just talked about here a little bit about these two towers. And it's all about the technology of managing our beliefs. And I call it the prana economy because beneath our words, there is an economy of energy that's happening. You could have said something to me, Rollie, last time that maybe offended me, that maybe insulted me in some way. And I would carry that grudge, that hole in my energy body for 2 or 3 weeks and save it for today. And then today, when you ask me something, even though I might agree with you, I might catch myself disagreeing with you. And I'm doing that because there's a prana economy that was below the surface of our words. And we don't pay attention to that economy. Let me just say that you didn't do that, Rollie. I freaking love you. You're great. But my point is that this underlying prana economy is something that none of us talk about. And the more we don't talk about it, the more we pretend like it's not there. And some of us are smart enough to see it. Some of us are able to get around it. We're able to intuitively understand that there's a different energy happening here. But most of us can't. And that's what the legal system does. It keeps us at that top 5% level. I say 5% because like 5% of your brain is algorithmic thought. We call that reason. We pretend like that's what it's all about. But deep below that surface, 95% of what you're doing is chemical thinking. It's context. It's coming up with solutions based on the theta state that we're in. Your brain waves, you can be in an alpha state, you can be in a beta state, you can be in a theta state, you can be in a gamma state. These different states are going to make us actually like different colors. They're going to make us like different moods. They're going to want confrontation sometimes. And so when you understand what the prana economy is, what I hope is that a reader's going to be able to come out of that and they're going to be walking through fluorescent world in some big DMV office, and they're going to go up to that hyena that's, you know, working in the machine behind the plexiglass, that's barking at you through the glass. You know, you're seeing the machine eat you right there. But with this prana economy, you're going to understand. You're going to be able to say something or inject something that's going to cause something different to happen chemically. And why? Because you're having a transaction that doesn't involve words anymore. You're focused more on what is her economy, or what is his economy? What is it that he is interested in trading me for what I need right now? And if we can get to this level where we're starting to see things deeper with our empathy, I think we can fix this psychopathy that's really taken over like a cancer. When we see each other's face, we're living in a telepathy. We call it empathy, but it's a real life telepathic communication. Right now, the vibrations in my voice, Rollie, are reaching your ears, and we are achieving a telepathic communication. I know we think it's just all words, but it's not. You can hear nuance in my voice. You can hear my inflections. You can hear where I care. You can hear maybe where I don't. You can hear where I'm tired. You can hear where I'm excited. All these things are telepathy, but we've been taught that no, it's all seance, it's all science, and it's not. This world is more about four-leaf clover than we're ever going to be told it is. That's why the placebo effect is such a powerful form of chaos magic that we do to ourselves. But even that, the medicine companies are trying to insist, no, man, that medicine worked because of these pills. And you can pull this up on TED. You can watch all kinds of studies like this that tell you, no, they had to really work hard to figure out that only 7% of the healing that's happening with this ulcer is actually through the medicine. That the rest of it is because it's in a shiny box, because it's taken twice a day, because it's in a capsule, not a pill, because the capsule's 2 colors, because there's a logo on the capsule. All of these things are part of our belief system. This is stuff I actually covered in my book that's out now, Blueprints of Mind Control. It's walking through the beginnings of this prana economy. It's helping people to understand that what you think is hard, the calories that you burn, are necessary to free the mind. This is going to be a daily chore for you, like starting to work out. If you want the truth, if you want to break free from mind control, you need to start exercising your sovereignty like a muscle. And it means every day you're going to have to get up and remind yourself again that NASA is full of shit. Remind yourself again that this is a freaking rumor that we're 6 months away from Iran having a nuclear bomb. That the entire nuclear program could be a worldwide mafia scam, meaning that the people that have nuclear weapons are the people that have blackmailed themselves into this lie, and they can use that nuclear weapon to manage and keep the mind control over their country. Because everyone's like, oh, if we don't vote for the right person, we could have a nuclear war. All of these are black magic. It's more like all these are chaos magic. All of this has nothing to do with science. This is about seance. This is about trance. That's how the world really moves. The world moves by belief, not by rationality.
Absolutely amazing. And I just want to tell the viewers, I don't think that Donald Trump ever gets near the nuclear football. If he does, a Secret Service man will pull out a pistol and shoot him in the head. I don't think he has that sort of control, to be honest.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's the way they frame it. They're the masters, the high priests of deception. They are masters of deception and lying. Essentially, they're professional liars. That's what they do all day. And it is part of a ritual. It's part of the Kabbalah. There's a religious aspect to this. And for the next part, I do want to change gears a little bit and maybe even just add on to the prana economy and talk about religion itself. I don't want to be a naysayer to religion. I want to open my mind to it. I want to be completely open-minded to it. Mm-hmm. I was wondering, in this new book, are you going to be talking about a connection with God? Because that's essentially what religion is. The devotee wants to be connected to a higher being, a higher intelligence, we all really strive for that. We really want that person to explain what the F does any of this stuff mean around us.
Yeah.
It's true. And is there a God brain? Is there a server connection between us and a higher power?
Well, I've been saying lately that zeitgeist is the mind of God. You know, zeitgeist is sort of like which things are hot, which things are considered popular right now, which aspects of culture or this or that. So zeitgeist is like the mind of God, but then logos is like the wisdom of God. It's the harmony of God. Those are two different signals. We create and process both of those signals. I personally do not believe that there is a thing inside our body called a soul that enters in and then leaves. I think that we're a beautiful meat antenna that tunes into a soul on a radio signal, on an asynchronous signal. The signal that we're receiving is going to be clearer the straighter our spine is. I use the word straight in the spine kind of loosely here. The more harmonious and congruent it is, the more tuned it is. If your spine is tuned like a guitar or even like a sitar because it's got a ton of strings, then you start to resonate the cross inside your body. Your shoulders and spine become an antenna. And just like a tuning fork, you know, if you were to walk into a music shop and there was a whole wall of tuning forks, you could strike one fork and all the other forks on the wall that were 33 hertz would also start vibrating. It's a sympathetic resonance. That sympathetic resonance is amazing because it doesn't diminish. So if you have two forks sympathetically resonating, it requires the same amount of energy as if you had 100 forks sympathetically resonating. This is the infinity built into our system. To me, that infinity is God. That awareness signal that you tune into is really what God is. That's why flowers are God. That's why birds are God. That's why breeze is God. All of this is a pranic ether. The rumor has been started that we live in a vacuum. But vacuum, Rollie, makes your mind believe that all your prana is being sucked out at an ever-increasing rate in a universe that's constantly expanding as you're shrinking. They're telling you that because your belief, again, if you believe that's happening, you are draining your system instantly. It would be like going underneath your car and cutting a slice in your fuel line. You would still be able to get around, but you would only be able to go like 2 or 3 miles. That's what's happening with our magic. That's what's happening with our belief. When we have these false notions that the universe came from nothing, that it had a start, that's a biggie, that it even had an origin point. That's really messed up if you think about it. Like, if you look at fractals, a fractal doesn't have a beginning or an end. You're going to be inside that fractal from a vista, from an advantage point. You can move that advantage point wherever you want. That's your assemblage point. That's your awareness in your body. That's it's not like we started off as pond scum and built our way up. We're a fractal that's unspun. That's all. It was all created at the same time. This is the magic of math. It's more of an infinity culture than it is affinity culture. But constriction is how psychopaths feed. That's why they have to install the affinity culture. You know, the oldest calendars ever were pagan, and they were just 7 days a week. They were just 13 moons. What I mean by that is there wasn't like this is year 16472. There was none of that shit. They didn't look at the world that way. This was a fractal that was unfolding. All you really needed to know was the seasons, was the cycles that were coming. You know, behold a pale horse used to just mean the light of day. It didn't mean pestilence. It didn't mean war. It didn't mean all this evil shit. That's the same belief system trying to turn your belief sour, trying to make you have dread, trying to make you fear revelation. Think about that. The word revelation, apocalypse, is a revealing. It's a showing of truth. But look at how much fear we have around that. That's on purpose. They're putting guards in front of these words, in front of your psyche, so your belief system is destroyed. So it's neutered. It's literally circumcised when you're born. And it stays that way through your whole life unless you can come up with the alchemy, unless you can set aside the calories in the day to go, I'm not living this way, damn it. I'm not a fucking sheep. I don't want a shepherd. I am my own shepherd. I am the God of my body. That's really what it comes down to. But we're taught to shame the body. But we should love our body. We should understand that 3 trillion blood cells right now are listening to you inside your body, going, what do you want me to do, man? What do you want me to do? You want me to pick up a Buick so we can save that kid? I'll do it, man. We have the capacity. You tell me what to do, Captain. But we're ashamed to be our captain. We're afraid to do that. And because we're afraid, that's why government works. That's why the pyramid's working. We can break that, but we have to gain our sovereignty. It's chaos magic.
It's amazing. The frontal lobe inside of our brains gives us a sense of who we are, but when we have religious experiences, it shuts down.
Mm-hmm.
And we take all our focus on God itself and divorce ourselves from our reality. And I did a 20-day fast.
Wow.
Just recently.
Mm-hmm.
No food. You know, I didn't do it the Muslim way where you eat at night. Jews do that too, you know, during Yom Kippur.
Right.
I did it straight, no food, just water.
Wow, nice.
And I did feel, and I did it for my health, but I did it for insight. You know, even I was starving when we did our first interview. And it's amazing, like, just divorcing yourself from the needs of this world just for those 21 days and just say, I don't need this toxic food, this Frankenstein food, the GMOs for 21 days. I'm just going to clean myself out. It's amazing that you could shut down certain aspects of your brain and the way that you think, you know, after you get past that hunger, because your brain goes into the drive of, I need to eat, I need to figure out how to eat.
Yeah.
But once you get past that, you start using certain receptors in your brain that I would say gives you some sort of connection to a higher power. But me being the annoying atheist that always has to mention that at the party,
Yeah.
you know, mention that. And I'm obsessed with knowledge, and you're a learned person too. You're a writer. I am too. And I really feel there must be some sort of placeholder for all this knowledge. And I got to talk about, you know, the reason we had this title tonight, you know, the second part was Uncharted Waters. You said that there's some sort of connection with intelligence and water the last time we talked. Is that correct? On my assumption?
I had said the Akashic record could be the ocean. You know, that we have this concept of the Akashic record, that everything that could be known is reachable somewhere. And that when we have divine inspiration, what we're really doing is we're tapping into the Akashic record. And so I have suggested that the ocean would be the perfect way to store that. That the jellyfish, all the creatures in the ocean, the currents, everything could be that giant Akashic record that we're able to tap into through our antenna, you know, through our transmission, our asynchronous connection with the world. It comes down, though, to remembering that atmosphere is ether. Atmosphere is not empty. Atmosphere is very real. We are submerged in the holy oil of oxygen. We can create and tune prana all around us, or ether all around us. We can propel a ball. We can propel our voice. We can travel. All these are things that in which we are swimming in the same kind of fluid as what we might see in the ocean down below. And when you think about your logos, it could be that you're an atheist more because you're just picturing your assemblage point all the time in your head. there's nothing wrong with that, by the way, Rollie. But maybe consider your spleen. Logos. Like I think it was Aristotle. I think it was him that said logos is from the brain and eros is from the spleen. And eros is the emotional reaction. Something that I talk about in this new book is that God really is. God speaks to me more through eros. He comes in more when something really awful just happened, and I'm just like hit, and even though I'm hit and I'm devastated, there's this moment where you feel this depth to your endocrine system, where you're just like, whoa, I didn't realize just how deep I could feel things. There's something to that intelligence. It has nothing to do with brain. It has nothing to do with spells, because what's in your head all the time is these words. These words are just spells. Eros is more natural. It's more based on your intuition. And I think that's really more where, at least where I define God, or divine God, because that's where I hear him. He speaks through those inspirational moments I have when I'm writing. He speaks through the tragedies that I have when I've lost something. Those are the moments that I feel closer to God. It's never once when I'm in my head thinking stuff through. In fact, I think that thinking is the opposite of flow state. I want to be the goose that's flying north. And when I'm thinking, literally that goose is stopped and he's having to ask for directions. Like he's not flying anymore. He's thinking right now. That's more like a holodeck. Like if you're playing a video game and you pull up the HUD display, and now you're looking through your inventory. That's really what thinking is. You're not actually in the game. I'm not saying you should never think, but these are two totally different processes that are happening. And I think we're only going to really see God when we're deep in our endocrine system, when we're playing the game all the time.
It's amazing, the concept of God, the semblance of it. Egyptians use various symbols for God, sometimes it's like a crocodile or even like a human face. And the human nature for God, the symbol of it, tend to correlate with the vindictive, wrathful, judgmental God. And the Jews in the Old Testament, they equated God as the God of the desert and of warfare itself. And they really changed the concept of God gradually in the Old Testament and New Testament, where sometimes it was the symbol of the sun, gold. And gold is the manifestation of the sun, the light. And also, there's sometimes in the Bible where God is described as this dragon, a fire-breathing demon that will come and eat you.
Yeah, maybe more like a demiurge kind of God. A lot of people believe that's what Yahweh is a demiurge, more of a darker, kind of deity. But they also rip away his powers, so he's not quite omniscient. He's not quite omnipotent. He is, but he still has limitations. And then he's jealous. Like he has jealousy, that's a massive prana leak. Like if you ever find yourself jealous, you're literally not home right now. Like you are missing yourself, but you think that what it is that you're missing someone else. You're really missing yourself. That's all jealousy really is. But they're setting up this God where no, he's this God. He's all powerful and he's jealous. It's setting up that same tower, that same. That's why I think so many people are pushed away from religion and from the spirit realm, is because these are the only options you have to enter into it, And Judaism and Christianity, I'm sorry guys, but they're the same thing. Yeah, you could say one has a Messiah, but Jews had their Messiah too. And they're not against another one coming. These are not different ideas. These are all Abrahamic religions. And all three of them, Judaism, Islam, and Christianity, all have this same central core, which is really a monotheism. And when you have that monotheism, you create a disassociation because you have a God that's outside the world, but the world is profane. It's material. And he imbues the world in certain areas through his divine breath or his intervention. That's a very disassociated way of looking at life. You're disconnecting it. You're saying, well, no, life is only if you can scream when I hurt you, or life is only this, or these are, and everything else is not life. That's the illusion that's leaking your prana. It's 1,000 cuts from 1,000 knives of Brutus into Julius Caesar. It's all these cuts, these stabs, and you're leaking your prana the second you adopt this belief, and it stays with you the rest of your life, because if you don't keep believing it, you're going to burn in hell. Or this guy that died for your sins, that's a holy relic, a living relic of blood, you're going to blow it for him because he did all this for you, and now you're not fulfilling your side of the obligation. These are deep guilt ties. It's the same kind of energy that happens with the Holocaust. When you start to, if you research the Holocaust, you start to realize this is not how World War II happened. Like what they're telling me happened and versus what actually happened are two totally different things. But the amount of energy you need to burn to get over that hurdle is the same kind of guilt that you have to have when I had a conversation with God and said, I don't know if I buy this royal bloodline crap that we're saying. If God has a son and he's the only begotten son, then I am no longer his child. I am now a bastard. I am now twice removed. But it's not even twice removed, because now there's the son, and then there are all these saints. And then underneath the saints, then I can start to come in. What is this? It's a pyramid. It's the exact same pyramid scheme that's there everywhere. I think this is why people are not as close to God. It's because we've established this amusement park pyramid line that you have to get in. And if you're lucky, you might be able to wind your way up the top, but you're never going to be able. I mean, you're never going to be saint. You're never going to be the son of God. You're not even going to be the chosen people. You're going to be the goyim. You're going to be the non-chosen people. And it's like, that's a crappy way to live your life. It's like being thrown into a pit, being handed a ladder, and you're supposed to be thankful for the ladder. You're supposed to thank that person for the ladder, which is great. Yeah, you're ascending. You're going to be back on the surface maybe right before you die. But the same person that pushed you down the pit gave you that ladder. And it's funny, but if you look at the Masonic, some of the old Masonic art is this idea of the ladder on one side and the chain on the other. And I'm not a Masonic interpreter, but I've always thought this is so enigmatic of mind control, these two mental images of the ladder and the chain. It's a slavery. Ascension, so many ascension programs are slavery, in my opinion.
James, unfortunately, we only have 2 minutes left of this show. I was wondering if you have anything else to tell the audience before we wrap up.
I'd love for you guys to try my book out. I really think it's going to change you. If you want to change, that is. I'm going to hook into your spleen, and we're going to talk about 47 different chapters of just blueprints of mind control, just spiritual, government, relationship-wise, gender-wise, all these things. I hit on each one, and I'm like, do you see how this is the same blueprint? Do you see how this is the same blueprint? Do you see how this is the same blueprint? Nice, easy chapters. It doesn't have to be something you can jump around. I think you'll really enjoy it. 15 stars, 15 5-star ratings. I think people really like it. The more people that buy this book, the better my next book's going to be. So I'd love it if you guys would check it out. Come to my website, www.jtrue.com. James True, but it's jtrue.com. And any of my articles, you'll see a chance you can buy an autographed copy for $22. I'll send it to you. I'll sign it, free shipping, or you can get it on Amazon. But please give my book a chance. As a writer, it would really give me some good prana too. It would be a mutually beneficial thing. So thank you.
Absolutely. Viewers, recognize the power of the purse. In order to keep James true, you have to support him any way that you can, and that includes buying his books and reading it and digesting it. It makes you feel good as a writer, having masses of people buying, your material and reading it and digesting it and apply it to their lives. And it's definitely uplifting literature, and I recommend anybody to buy the upcoming books or go through the 47 chapters of Blueprints for Mind Control. That's actually inspired me to actually do a 20 chapter of essential writings of Rollie Quaid, even do it by volumes as I progress.
Awesome. Yeah. I think it's a new form of literature, Rolly, because we're on this like Twitter world, now where everything's kind of more quick and bite sized, like tapas at a restaurant. That's why I wrote my book this way. I'm trying to cater to that kind of appetite.
It gives us the outsider's edge, which is a great edge to have. Mm-hmm. Because I remember when Bill Cooper had his book, and granted, there was no Amazon back then, but his books were being sold in kiosks all over New York. And his work was being supported by books, and nobody was trying to pirate his works. I mean, it would be too expensive to Xerox at all.
Yep. So
definitely, James True, I'm crossing my fingers and my toes for this last question. Will you be on my show again?
Oh, I'd love to, Rolly. You always have new data from me. I learn so much every time, so I'd love to come back.
Definitely. We'll see you soon enough, and I do want to get some updates when you come back on, when you learn more about this event in 2020 at Acapulco. It's kind of an anarchist kind of meet, but they talk about more than just anarchy. They talk about Bitcoin. Even David Icke was there last year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he was on the main stage last year. So I'm the only person that's been announced yet, I think. Jeff announced me today, sort of like he leaked it out in an article he wrote. So I think it was just luck that I got announced. But I can't wait to see who's got lined up. I know it'll be big. Ron Paul's been there, David Icke's been there, a lot of big names.
Man, that is exceptional. And I do definitely want you to come back on the show, and we'll talk about that a little bit on the opener next time. Well, thank you so very much for tuning in, and thanks, James, once again for coming in. All good things must come to an end, and I got to get some sleep. So good night, folks, and you've just been blackballed.
How to invent a religion.
I always knew you had to be willing to die to even do this job.
Can't stop what's coming.
Executive orders. The creation and the maintenance of a secret government within our government.
Is something wrong?
With what?
With anything.
I feel like you want to rip your face off.
There's something wrong with anything.
I was so spun.
What's the most you ever lost an acquaintance?
The law of the jungle, sir.
The most you ever lost an acquaintance? You don't know what you're talking about.
Good son.
I said, you don't know what you're talking about.
Suppression of unrest and dissent. Domestic anti-terrorism.
I don't have some way to put it.